And why we came to Scriba? No. But the Kocher family coming to Scriba, I guess, is a good way to start. And it was John Kocher and his son Adam who came over from Bavaria in 1852. I believe they came to Oswego to work on the lake, but we're not really sure about all of that. So John was a veteran. And I have a bit of a newspaper clipping from his service, I think, but perhaps not. Well, anyway, the newspaper clipping, because I kind of remember it pretty well, was 50 years ago today. It was 1880, so that was a newspaper clipping from 1930, and it said that John Kocher is believed to be one of the last surviving members of Napoleon's Guard. And after the war, he joined the Prussian army, and after that, he came here. I guess. It's a good point. The son Adam, he and the son Adam bought the property on 104 where we live now. I have the old deed from 1872, and they bought 18 acres and farmed it. They're all farmers. So Adam had two children. Matilda was born in 1862, but died in 1866. She was only 4. And then George, he was born in 1864. George, my great-grandfather. And he stayed on the farm and farmed. Mostly vegetables, some fruit trees, yeah, but mostly vegetables that they sold at market. Adam and his wife Anna had George farmed the property. Delia Peckham was his wife. He married her. She was a next door neighbor from just up the road where Carol Pora lives now. I don't know if anybody knows where that area is, but it's right across from the new solar farm that Francis Kroll put up on 104. They had 2 kids. Well, 3 kids. They had Mabel, who stayed on the farm. She became a school teacher and went to Oswego Normal School. And Neil, who moved to Rochester, ended up working for Kodak. And my grandfather, Carl, who stayed on the farm. Carl also was a World War I veteran. He was in the Field Remount Squadron. This is a kind of a memento that he had gotten from that. I also have up here a panoramic photo. It's hard to see, but you come up afterwards, see of all the men on horseback from this remount squadron. And of course, a picture of my grandfather in his uniform in World War I. Also here I have a picture of the guys working the hay wagon. Back in the day when you had to work pitching the hay by hand. Yep. It was good work. Kept them all in shape. Using it. Yeah, pretty good now. You've done all that. You see that before? Years old. This was probably taken by my Uncle Neil, who worked for Kodak. This would have been from about 1919 or so. So they had a lot of photographs.
I stand. I've got
Get it on.
This is the file.
It looks just like me, right, Justin? Not the horse. So mostly, I was going to go through some of my great-grandmother's diaries. She had kept diaries in 1882, 83, and 84, and 89. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting for everyone to see what people were doing at the time. She didn't go into great detail about things. A lot of times she would just say, oh, we planted seeds, or planted plants or whatever, and you don't know what kind of plants or what they did or all that, but she knew, so she didn't bother writing it down. Apparently. So, on this day, Saturday, May 13th, obviously the days were mixed up, but in 1882, Belle and Edith spent the day up at Scriba. Belle wanted to take her painting lessons. Father and mother went to the city. I called on Mr. Kocher to see a steam engine that had been left there over Sunday. Maud, Cecilia, and Cora Wheaton dressed themselves in long dresses and called. Exciting times, right? On May 14th, it was pleasant. Father, mother, and children went out to Mr. Fish's. They took out the colt to pasture. I walked to Scriba to church and came right home after church. And that would have been down here at Scriba Corners, and from where we live, it's a couple miles probably. Yeah, and Thursday, May 18th, Bill and I set plants all day again. You see, they're pretty busy people. Let's see. May 20th, Mary has been here again all day. I called at Mrs. Madison in the afternoon and walked to the city and back. Mrs. Madison came over and helped mother sew. In the evening, we went to the Grange, which was down here on the corner, and in the lumber wagon, Mrs. Madison and Mary rode with us. Mary Holland has worked here again today, has made my polonaise. It sits lovely and is very pretty. Polonaise was a fashion of dress. It was popular in the late 1700s, but made a resurgence in the late 1800s, 1880s, so to speak. And this is the dress, I think, that they had made at the time. She was very small, lovely, you should say, but this was characteristic of holidays fibers, apparently, and but in the length of. I would fashion it, wear it for you, but it's old and I'm afraid the seams will spread. Seam is important.
Sees that must have been though for.
Oh, really? Yeah. And all the handwork sewing up in this house.
Just look at the buttholes.
Yeah.
How long was that? The tape? Your mock house? That was a wedding dress?
No, the wedding dress is up on the.
Oh, that one. Okay.
But a lot of work went into Curiotti Maze.
Very tiny lake.
Yeah. Yeah. It's two-piece. That's a dress underneath it. Says you would have worn probably a chemise or something like that under.
Tank cover.
Tank top, that was probably the early tank top from the 80s, 1880s. Well, yeah, if I could have had, so.
There were corsets at that time?
I don't know, I didn't,
You remember? No.
I guess she does have the bloomers and a long slip type thing. I didn't bring all of her undergarments, but we still have all those in days.
Wow. That is cool.
This, as we're doing dresses, this was her wedding dress.
Oh. She was this is lace. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how it tied up and
She gets
what they would have worn underneath it. This was the dress she would have worn in 1890 when she got married in December.
Wow. Did anyone ever wear it after her?
I really don't know. I think it's been kept. These things that took so long to make, they probably just saved them for special occasions. Even that from 1882. Yeah, it's surprising the mice hadn't found them.
Yeah.
They seem to find everything.
Yeah, but the material, the higher rather than house, what's and burger.
Well, one of the things in this grant, of course, was the apple drying. The family worked there apparently on October 18th, 1882. We finished working in the dryer tonight at 6 o'clock, and I can't say I am sorry. We sang most all of the afternoon. We sang over all of our old familiar songs. Albert paired at the other table this afternoon, and he and Anna, which was probably my great-grandmother, raced. He beat, of course. Ellen, Madison, Marie, and Jessie came over to Grandpa's in the evening. And then Christmas time, December 23rd, 1882. Mother and Belle was Delia's sister, were over here most of the day working on children's presents. Mother made some pumpkin pie and fried cakes for me. I baked bread. And after supper, went home, Mr. Peterson with me. I'm going to stay all night. He sat up until about 12 o'clock finishing things. Made molasses candy and popped some corn. Things were different. December 24th. I came over and got breakfast, then went home. Mother, Belle, and I walked to church. It was very bad walking, and we were quite late, but we're there in time to hear Mr. Ensign preach a grand good sermon. After church, he asked us to go up to his house and stay until evening meeting. But I came home with Mother. Belle stayed up. In the evening, Mr. Kocher called. His father is worse, which is probably John. He doesn't think he'll live a great while. Although I do know he went on for another 6 years. Christmas Day. Christmas has come again, and thank God we are all alive and well. Jenny and the children went up bright and early to see what Santa Claus had brought them. Edith had some books and a doll. Orsi, which was Delia's brother, had some books and a gun and a watch. They were all happy. Mother gave me a volume of Tennyson's poems. Carrie sent me an autograph. Belle has an autograph album. Autograph albums were pretty popular back in the day. You would take them around, and of course you didn't get around like we do now, so you'd get your autographs. Father had a checkerboard, cup and saucer, and Mother had a cup and saucer and a cake plate, a palette and an easel, and Rachel gave her a hood. Oh, and her sister, Belle, came over for a few minutes and brought me a penknife she had forgotten to give me. I am well satisfied with my present. I went home after dinner and found we had Mrs. Burgess and 2 children there and are going to stay all night. I ate supper there and went over. I got Mrs. Madison's supper, then came home. I'm going to stay all night. Mrs. Burgess brought a singing book, and we had a good time singing till about 11 o'clock. They did a lot of socializing in those days. Let's see, this is April 9th, 1883. A beautiful day in the afternoon, Mother and I went to the city. I got my things to wear to the Institute. I'll get into the Institute in a minute. We saw Ida Dubois. She was going home tomorrow. Belle and I spent the evening at the Kochers. Tom Wheaton was there. We played Parcheesi. Tom and Belle played against Mr. Kocher and I. They beat us most every time. April 10th, we boiled sap all day again. Work. Friday, April 13th, Mother went to Oswego with Mrs. Madison. I have been home with the children all day. In the evening, I went to Mr. Kocher's. They had a sick cow, and most of the neighbors were there. Adrian, Eddie, Tom Wheaton, and myself played Parcheesi. We had a good time. Nothing bothered except Eddie said Tom and I cheated. She got mad and cried, but got over it and felt better before we came home. April 14th, another beautiful day. Mother and Father went to Oswego, and Mrs. Wilson came up in the afternoon. She brought the baby and stayed to supper. In the evening, I went to Mr. Wheaton's. Addison, Kate, and Carrie and Anna were there, and we all played Author's Game. Author's Game was a card game, a game of authors. It was popular in the late 1800s, and particularly in the 1880s. It's considered one of the earliest versions of Go Fish, type of a family of games, the fish games. The game involved collecting sets of cards representing famous authors and their works. And they still have modern versions of that out and about. So. Yep, and then March 29th, Belle went to Mrs. Madison's, and Mother and I ironed and boiled down some sap. We had syrup for supper, and Mom read aloud that evening. I finished the lace for Mother's Day shirt, and Father and Mother went to Oswego. Let's see. Clayton Parkhurst has been here and says he wants me to go to the Parish Institute. So I suppose I should go. Father went and carried him home. The Parish Institute, the best I could find out, was a type of school to prepare mostly women for teaching. It was hard to, I couldn't find any real reference to it in the Parish Historical Society, nor at the Sheldon, what I could find up from Edward Sheldon from Oswego State or Study Normal School here. But anyway, one day, May 16th, it was rained a little, but not enough to hurt us. We arose and arrived at Mrs. Coe's at around 5:30, ate breakfast with Mr. Mike Wilcox, came to take us to parish. We had a lovely ride, stopped at Mexico, and called at Dr. Watering's. It was very hard to read these things. You take a look at these diaries later. The script was very nice, but it's fading pretty bad. We had a letter from Charlie asking her to get us. Nope, I don't know what that says. Anyway, they stayed in Mexico. I bought one of the. I'm sorry, some of this is just illegible. I just forgot to edit this. But anyway, we went to Mrs. Ryder's and found that she had 6 girls boarding with her already. So they were at parish looking to, to stay while she went to the institute there. But we were afraid that they wouldn't take us in, Annie and I, but she did. And we like her ever so much. I went to town hall in the afternoon. We like the institute very much. Professor John Seven and Kennedy are splendid. They taught reading in the evening and went to the church. Mrs. Karen didn't like her sermon much. No. Tuesday the 17th, everything going on about as usual at the hall. We have fine music. And they passed around the autograph book to write in. We wrote Frank a note in the center of what is in the name. Oh, and Frank wrote in the center, what is in the name? An onion smell. Would an onion smell any sweeter if it's called by any other name? So they seemed to like that, so they all wrote their initials in the corner of that particular page of the autographs book. Thursday the 19th, we have examinations in geography and grammar today. Mr. Ensign is at the hall. In the evening, Dr. Lee and his wife and Mr. Sheldon lectured about their visit to Egypt. Jesse, Frank, and I went to the lecture and Lillian and Carrie had fellows, and we hurried home, put a string across the gate, then went upstairs with Gertie and Rosamond and took the slats out from their beds. So the girls did a lot of fun now. They're Franksters. Friday the 20th, Mr. Sheldon and Dr. Lee talked in the morning. Also, Mr. Kennedy had examinations in physiology, money methods, history, civil government. And we rode from the house with Mr. Ryder in his lumber wagon. Oh. The Institute of Parish lectures and examinations in English, history, geography, physiology, civil government. The Pestalozzi teaching method, that was favored by Edward Sheldon. He pushed to have that method used in schools for teaching, and that method was object teaching using models and blocks over rote memorization. And I think that was the sort of idea for teaching. It was later on in her diary, she said that she can't believe that she's teaching at the Madison Schoolhouse and complains that the younger ones are hard to manage come the afternoon. As you can imagine. Well, that's pretty much all I took to take it out of her diaries. Just a little snapshot into her life 140 years ago and what she did on this day in 1882. And I say some of these have come up, take a look at any of these pictures in the diaries. I brought them in with me. You can see how hard it is to try to read these fine script. So I don't know. If somebody has any questions about that?
Explain the names on the wall. The pictures are good.
Oh, okay. Yes. Who are they? Well,
Yes.
that's me in 1955.
Oh.
Like I said, wore my shorts. Him. That's my dad, Don. That's my grandfather, Carl. That's my great-grandfather, George. That's Delia. And the 4 generations. That's at the house that Carl had built in 1919 after he got back from World War I. And Carl also had changed the farming over from vegetables to dairy farm, which was popular at the time. And my dad went off to World War II. And then when he came back, he went to work in the industry, actually in a printing shop. Of course, he had 2 kids, me and my brother Brad. Then we each had 1 kid. I have a daughter and a granddaughter, and Brad has a son, Troy, which many of you probably already know Troy. And I think that's kind of it.
How did your dad and mom, because your mom was from England,
Yeah.
did they meet over there?
Yeah, when my dad was stationed, he was in the Air Force. So he was stationed near Grimsby, where my mom lived, at an air base. And they'd get time off, and they'd go into town and mix with all the local women and stuff. And eventually, they corresponded. Whatever.
Look, it's white.
We don't have any photos from that, but
When Mom passed, I asked her how she met your dad, and she said she and her girlfriends were out and saw a group of soldiers and, were all giggly and thought they were handsome and followed them to the movie theater.
Strongest picture.
And I don't know what conspired from there, but supposedly, according to your mom, that was the beginning of their friendship. Lee?
she didn't come over until 1947. So it was well after the war, after my dad had returned from England as well. So they must have been writing back and forth, and then decided to bring her over. And she came over here, and she thought she was in the middle of nowhere. The city of Grimsby was the largest fishing port on the east coast of England. It was a good-sized city. When I've been over a few times, it was 600,000 strong men, and anyway, it was a much larger city. So she got over here out in the boondocks, and she wasn't sure how she was going to make it. The house that they had didn't have running water, and the house that they lived on, which is right next door to where my mom's house is, the Lewis house or Pretty house was on the top of the hill across from Burrett's, pretty much. Near the outhouse, yep. But she was, yeah. What's she gonna do? How's she no getting back in those days? Came over on a boat, and there is some more information. Charlie Young and Mark Heinrichs, they interviewed my dad in 1995 about his time in World War II, and that's on the Scriba Historical Society website. That was pretty interesting stuff. He never told me, but gave up then. So I don't know. So yeah, I'm still on the property. My brother's still there. Our daughter and granddaughter live down in Catskills, and Troy lives in the neighborhood, more or less.
He's a nomad.
Yeah, he's a nomad. Yeah. That's the Kochers are here. Stayed. It's good area. They were buried in Riverside Cemetery. I had to go up this morning to check to make sure I had my dates correct. I didn't think I threw many of them out there, but
What did they name the road,
I don't know. We're not sure why it was Kocher Road. We think because it divided their property
Oh, right.
in half. It was the old City Line Road. It used to come straight off of City Line Road. It would have gone where Lowe's traffic light entrance is, and went straight. You can still find remnants of it back down straight out onto the Kocher Road, and then went up the hill and then cut back across by George Cruel's Stony Meadows farm there.
Do you notice they bought the property from Cruel's? Because talking to Stanley one time, he told me that they one time owned from the lake to Hall Road. And I don't know how wide of a swatch, but of course it was in Stanley's later years too, so I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, the property that our house is on, they bought 18 acres then in 1872. And the other pieces of property, which they bought from other people would have to look at the old, you know, the abstracts to see where they came from. The ones on the city side of the road, that was all farmed.
How much property was there? Your mom sold a lot of it, didn't she?
Oh, she sold 5 acres.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was landlocked. The Cruels had the 104 side, so for them to put lows on. So there's still 27 acres back in there. Then there's where my mom's house is. That's there's an acre there. Then the other side of the road is the 18 acres. Where Brad and I yeah.
Was there a one-room schoolhouse nearby?
Yeah, the Madison schoolhouse was probably 250 yards, 300 yards, maybe a quarter mile up the road, east of our house. That's where Delia taught, I think, and Mabel. Yep. There's another one up on the end of Kocher Road, but they didn't go there for some reason. It's Stone House.
I'd love to know the connection between that parish house where they learned to teach and Edward Austin Sheldon.
Right. I'm not sure if that Sheldon is Edward, if he taught out there at 18. This would have been
I assumed it was
1884.
Edward, but
Yeah, I assume so as well, but he was here at the time. As much as I could find out, he was here, and he was adamant on changing the way teaching was done, and started this normal school out there with my aunt neighbor with.
I didn't. Isn't that I mean?
But it's funny the name Sheldon came up, but
It's not
yeah,
really.
and apparently it was only a weekend or you know, a few days that they were at this institute. And they took examinations, so I assume that they were being examined to make sure they were qualified to teach, you know, the kids in a one-room schoolhouse, because, you know, teaching, you know, they wasn't quite the same then, I guess.
Brian, the institute I got to clarify. Where was the institute or the teaching teachers? Where did that take place?
That was in Parrish, New York, yes.
Okay, well, there's a lead for you.
Well, yeah, I looked on the Parrish website, but you know, the Historical Society's website. I didn't find too much on it.
Good.
But it's going to take a lot of digging.
Well, that's interesting. Very interesting because, again, Sheldon.
Yeah, I wonder if it's Edwin Austin Sheldon or.
I'm trying to think of when the college was founded, and I should know. But in like 250.
Before, let's put it that. Is it what? 1860. 1860. Yeah.
That's where. And when did he start? He was taught school in Oswego for a while.
1850s.
Oh, really?
1950 those ones. So that would like there's definitely a connection. Something is fiddling around there, or a brother or whatever, but that name. Interesting. Keep on going with your research.
Oh my gosh!
You come back and present again.
Find out what we can do.
We'll be back next month.
It seems to me like, I don't know if everybody thinks this is right, but let's say that the parish school was held and he taught there for a couple days, a week. It seems right that he could be doing both at the same
Oh, sure.
That's just what I was thinking. Secondly, have you always pronounced your name Kocher?
We have, but
But-
technically, I think it is
Kocher?
Well, some say Kocher.
And
Yeah.
it means cook?
It is cooker or stove or something of that nature. Yeah.
And it's German?
German. Yeah, Bavarian, German. Not much difference, I guess. Middle Eastern European. Middle Eastern European. That sounds fine.
Brian, did your father shake the printing? I mean, you ended up doing printing and stuff. Was your father instrumental in starting you on that?
Well, yeah, Dad was working there, and I started there when I was in high school. I was delivery boy, and when a couple of years ago I retired, I was still the delivery boy.
Yeah, but a very good printer. I can tell you that.
I think it's a very good delivery.
Yeah,
He delivers.
I still got some of his work, believe me.
Well, Ellen's been subject to it as well. Oh, she was glad when I retired, turned it over to Megan for, and Justin as well, and Mary Kay, I think, probably, who is Historical Society and Riches and Bates, yeah. I worked for all of you.
Not a politician, still working.
That house. So is that house still there? Like,
The one in the phone?
yeah.
Yes, that's the yellow house across from do you know where Tesserero's,
Yeah.
they got that,
It looks familiar, but
yeah, well, yeah, not much there to see over there. It's a yellow house right across from Debbie Tesserero's.
Is it on Kocher Road?
No, it's on Run 04.
Oh, 104.
Yeah, right next to our house, next door. It used to be on the corner of Kocher Road and 104. But 1953, they raised the road up and they moved the house up to, up there. That was, pictures of that too. That was a impressive thing back in, in the 50s. Great huge beams they put under, they jacked it up and put it on a truck, dragged it up there. Set it on a hole they dug in the ground.
Well, Howard, will you rate the Coral?
Cora's my grandmother.
Grandmother, I used to plow her driveway.
Oh, okay, right.
Blue Devil house in the
Yeah. Yep. That's the one they were talking about there, yep.
That house is still, it's beautiful, shaped like yours. It was used yesterday, but it's scary.
Yep, Gary's painted it well. Mom sold it to Gary and Darlene Borland, 20, 30 years ago. They were renting it, but then the Borlands have been a family friend of the Kocher for long days.
Years ago.
Since the Kocher family has been around so long, where are the rest of the Kochers since the mid 1800s?
Well, Neil went to Rochester. He worked at Kodak, and his family, he had a daughter and a grandson, and they, and then great granddaughters, but they were all moved away. Neil, who was my age, the young Neil, he worked at Kodak as well, but he passed away last year, and his kids,
Your great grandpa.
one lives in Maine, and the other one down in Brooklyn, and I don't know where. So that part moved that way. Mabel never married, never had any kids. She had a boyfriend back in the teens or whatever, and but he was an engineer or an architect, and he had to travel, and she didn't want to leave her mom and dad there at the somebody had to stay and take care of family, so she stayed. And my grandfather was there, took over the farm, did all the farming. Although that pictures, my great grandfather and my grandfather were pitching hay. But farming is a lot of work. And my grandfather passed away in 1977. And my grandmother 90, 91. They were both, well, he was 88, my grandmother's 98. My great grandfather was 98 when he passed. Or like good, healthy farm living.
So now do you think your daughter will ever come back to keep that Kocher property in the Kocher or Troy or one of the other?
Well,
I know she's got a wife downstate, but
yeah, she talks about it since they work remotely.
yeah, it would be cool to keep it so
Yeah.
many generations.
Actually, Brad and I have turned it over to them. So Brad and I are just, swatters. That we mow the lawn, we take care.
They start pushing.
Play Parcheesi.
Yeah, play cheesy. Game of authors. That sounds like an interesting game, a card game. We probably with Mark Twain. I was looking at some of the pictures. I couldn't find anything good enough to photograph. So I say Mark Twain and maybe one of his works. And you would ask, do you have Mark Twain's? Whenever Mark wrote, but you lost it right down. You wrote something, I know. A Huckleberry Finn, but something like that. Yeah.
and as you were reading the diary, can you remind me whose writing that was? That was your great.
That's Delia Peckham, my great grandmother. Yeah. Yep. That was before she was married, she would have been 20 at the time. So she was married, she was born in 1863, and so those are from 1882, 83. She got married in 1890. Although a lot of her diary pages, she mentions that Tom Wheaton an awful lot and how he walked her home with her, because they, with stuff so on. And I go through the diaries, and a lot of pages that are torn and pieces are missing. Or,
Good parts.
yeah.
We just get these about Parcheesi.
No, yeah, Parcheesi and Game of Authors, but the Parcheesi wasn't around, but I mean, we don't know. Those parts were torn out. So. Anyway, we're done.
And one more question. Your grandfather, great grandfather, did they see action in the war? I mean, you hear anything about battles? Or...
My grandfather in World War I, he was in the Field Remount Squadron. So it sounds to me, the quartermaster, it sounds to me like they just brought fresh horses up and walked back. Apparently, if you've seen any of the things from World War I, that wasn't good. He was in France, where he, during the war. And my dad did, he flew a P-51 Mustang, and he saw, they shot at planes. He got a credit for half of a kill on one of the German jets. He says, but as soon as the jet saw them, just disappeared. And he lost a couple planes. Well, he crash landed a couple planes, or then he left them, so he kind of knew where they were, but that was didn't really help. Some of that's in the story that he had told on the Scriba Historical Society site. He did mention one time they were supposed to go up after they escorted the bombers over. That was their job, to keep the fighters up the bombers. The bombers were slow. They'd take off hours before, and then they'd meet them after they got over France and say up high and watch her, trouble. Apparently, and on the way back, they were supposed to shoot up German trains or whatever they could, and he went over one and shot one up, and it blew up underneath us. We came back with 2x4s and all kinds of things sticking out of the bottom of his plane. Yeah, it was kind of interesting, but his favorite runs were up to Scotland to get the whiskey.
Yeah, for missions.
Yeah.
Oh, that, who owns the A-frame?
That's my brother Brad.
Oh, okay, that's your property there?
Yeah.
Where does Cruels come over? Don't they butt up at inside?
Yes, they do. Up by the creek on Kocher Road, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's on both sides of Kocher Road, yeah. And of course across the road. Yeah, Cruels had quite a bit of property there that they farmed. There was 5 druthers, I think, after World War II, and yeah, they had a pretty good sized farm.
Need to get George Cruel in here next to talk about the other half of the neighborhood.
Yeah, George, yep.
Got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On Cruel's property, there's a bronze silo.
Yeah.
That came from my dad's house at Mexico.
Oh, really? Looking down the rebuild? Oh, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yep, still standing.
Yeah. That's what when you drive around the countryside, you see silos still standing. The barns are falling apart, but we only have a bit of the barn left at our house that they had back in 1872 when they got the property.
And which house did you live in? The first house. And I was at LeBeau's. Dick LeGeau used to live. Oh, ice. Okay.
Yep.
Johnny Cruel's property was our border. Okay. And we go down the hill, and there was a pond down there. We used to ice skate on that. Of course, we'd slide down there and hope the ice. You started out that I started out there. We left there in 50 or 51. We moved to Texas. So
Yeah, they used to dam the creek down there, for ice for the winter. I think they used to store it in sawdust. There's a couple places where they were cut out of the bank, and the bank, was built up with stone. They make a little structure, and they would stick the ice in there and sawdust to draw it up by horse, no doubt, to keep the things cold.
I have a question. You should know this, but being married, I don't listen to you when you talk. Okay, so Delia, great-grandmother, right?
Right.
Was she, before she married your great-grandfather?
Right.
Yeah. Were they neighbors?
Yes. Delia lived at where Carapora lives now.
Okay, so they knew each other, right, from...
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Although George was 3 years younger, so he was probably just a thorn in their side, you know. You know, one of those rotten kids next door. Although they were down there a bit, the neighbors always helped each other out. I say they all went down there when they had a sick cow, and don't know what they did to play Parcheesi, but you know, it cures everything.
Or
Well, where did you take your apples to be dried?
Where were the apples being dried? What she's talking about, I believe, was here on the corner at up there, where the apple dryers were. They came to work, and I'm not sure if they were their apples or how that all worked. But
I just curious. I always heard that Ray Walker had apple dryer.
he did.
Hey, well, yep, there's one there, and then there's one on the corners.
Yeah. Oh, and then I was interested to ask, to follow that up, is what church on Scriba Corners did they ever mention?
Which church? No, whether it was the one that's gone now or the one that's used to be a. Is it still one to kind of Scriba?
No. No.
Was it Baptist? Was it Methodist or Baptist?
There was Baptist, yeah. I think that the one on the river was South Child.
It's just like frame, solid walls still sit there. Going up the hill.
Yeah.
That's a Methodist. The other one was a Baptist.
Oh, it's not. I don't know.
That Baptist and the North Scriba combined to build the new one.
I think
They're like dogs.
It's by that church.
It's what?
I think.
That's what those going to Scriba help be our lives. That's absolutely.
That's right. Charlie's got all the answers in his books. Yeah. He put a lot of time into that.
Church, not by the river.
So we have to ask Justin about Edward Sheldon. Did he run an institute or work at an institute in Parish for teaching back in 1882 in April? Pardon?
Yeah.
Parish, yeah.
I don't think so.
No, I couldn't find any reference to him actually having been there, but I know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who the teachers were at this Parish Institute.
Maybe it's a church. It's another name for church.
I know John mentioned that it might have been a parish church, but they went to Mexico to get there, and then they carried on and didn't get there until 10:30 at night. So I assume that and that's not that far to Parish from Mexico, but by wagon or whatever they took.
Interesting.
No.
I've never heard of any connection. And I read his autobiography,
Okay, yeah.
you know.
Yeah, he might have mentioned something about that. He did teach in Oswego, right, for a long time.
Right.
I mean,
But
not
that was for the, the children that were, kind of didn't have any
right.
education. That's so he started that school in Oswego.
Okay.
And he needed teachers to help him.
Okay.
Do it all on his own. So in 1861 is when he started the Oswego Normal School. But before that, he was in the nursery business. That's when he first came to Oswego, to be in the nursery business. And then that's when he learned about the need of children
Right.
to get an education.
Everybody hear what Justin's saying about?
So he started the school, but he needed women to teach them. Couldn't do it all on his own, technically. So.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say no, absolutely not, but I don't think he personally did anything in Parish.
Yeah.
He might have sent some of because they moved around all over. When they were in the teacher college,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't stay in Oswego. the goal is to send the Oswego method around the world. So it's possible,
Yeah.
that
Well, I just was curious that the name came up there, but this was in 1880, so it,
1880.
yeah, 1882.
But it's still possible that they were sent to Paris or moved to Paris to teach the Oswego method.
Yeah, just for a long weekend, as far as I could tell. They weren't there very long. 9 days.
And if you see a statue in front of Sheldon, it's all about the Oswego method of teaching. So because he started out in the nursery business, when it came to Oswego, that was one of the things. And then, because of where the original school was, it was close to Markham Park. And so that was where they would grow things to teach children how to grow things and make things in gardens.
The method teaching that.
The method of teaching, yeah. So you use something instead of repeating back and forth whatever the teacher was saying.
Right.
Or looking at a chalkboard. He didn't like that. He said, I want, interaction. I want him to learn what things mean, like an apple. But it could be, a ball. It could be,
Right, yeah.
whatever else. Just an example. So that's when they made the statue of him from the pennies that the kid donated to make his statue.
Yeah.
And then they had the child holding the apple in his hand.
Well, glad I asked that.
It's so fun. It started out in the nursery, but
Yeah.
So basically, it was a farmer.
Just
And then he acquired the land on the lake where his house is.
And is that the house that the president lives in?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was his house. He built it,
Well, he did pretty well for himself.
and because he wanted to be on the waterfront. Yeah, so that's where he lived. And then that became the president's house ever since.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anything else on any?
It's cool that it's mentioned in.
Well, that's what I'm not sure whether it's, that she mentions a Sheldon, but I don't know. She mentions a Sheldon, but I don't know. I'll have to look closer at the.
Yeah, because
They're very hard to read.
his daughter also got into doing those things.
Into that type of teaching.
Yeah.
This is that's why it's so hard to read.
Beautiful handwriting. Yeah.
This is one of those pages that, what happened then?
It's not Parcheesi, but cheesy.
Cheesy.
Isn't that amazing?
I had a hard time reading this with magnifying glass and a flashlight so I could illuminate it more.
Passed down and I know.
Should have started the printing business before.
Yeah, right. You started the printing business too late.
This was easy. You read that. I bookmark certain spots.
Beautiful handwriting.
And they don't teach cursive. This is me.
I taught my granddaughter.
No, yes. Say,
It's easy to read.
Oh, well.
Thank you.
That's how I was reading it to transcribe some of it. It was very neat.
skill. It is.
It's the manipulation is Ja, ist wichtig. Das ist dann useless.
No, I was directed the RSVP program. For 3 decades.
Oh. That's it. It's his best.
You guys have a lot. So you listen to Scriba? I don't think so. Oh, have you? Really? Is that what you're teaching adults right
Say Daisy.
I know. All of you are teachers, so.
It's the gel. It's piece of cheese.
Ara gav nu mig språk till mamma. Av både han och kan.
Just work.
Salt.
That's the crux.
I think this is free.
Make see at this one so how
That's gotta be so hard
for a teacher.
Oh my God.
I admire just so much for it. I appreciate it.
Justin, my sister worked with you, and she always raved about you. Linda Strong, you remember Linda Strong? She worked with you at the record sale. And she just always talked about Justin. She thought you did really well. I just had to say I'm so glad to meet you because she talked about you all the time. Yeah.
Big like.
I miss her, but it's good memories. Oh yeah. But I'm so glad you're here.
I didn't realize how you did it.
Yes. I'm so excited. Every month, yes. Next one's going to be a strawberry apple. And then I can't remember what July is. There every month. I was here the second Tuesday of every month. Amy, she's living in my mom and dad's house. And she's still working up at Westfield Industries.
Okay, everybody, let's give a hand to Brian for this presentation. Thank you, Brian. He comes in anytime. Yeah. Okay, so next month, I believe it's June 10th, we'll be having a presentation on strawberries, Scriba strawberries. So it'll be June 10th, I believe, but it's always the second Tuesday at 6:30 right here. So feel free to get some refreshments and purchase some items or look at Brian's things or whatever you'd like to do. Don't rush. Please. Or Ellen.
Our secretaries are they're wonderful. If you look around, would you look around?
No, I'm good, thank you.
You want a brownie or lemon?
Water to go with it?
Yeah, he was talking about that. He wouldn't take you up there until like so many hours in the air.
Anyway,
There you go, sir.
Kind of
The old, Kocher Stupid Track is here. This is 1880. Oh no, this is.
Business, please.
It was a
There's a spider. So wait for
Try to go to see. It is Nancy.
Yeah, what about it?